So now let's do combination of resistor. First, series. Resistors are said to be in series when same current flows through them. Same current flows through them. Now, if you have got multiple resistors R1, R2, R3 in series, then their equivalent resistance comes out to be equal to R1 plus R2 plus R3 and so on. Quite simple. Remember that the equivalent resistors, when resistors are connected in series, comes out to be greater than any individual. For example, if you connect 1 ohm, 2 ohm, 3 ohm in series, then the overall must be greater than 3 ohm. Okay, so equivalent is greater than any individual. Second, parallel combination. Resistors are said to be in parallel when they are connected across same potential drop. The equivalent resistance is given by 1 by R equivalent equals to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3 and so on. Remember that for two resistors in parallel, always use R equivalent equals to R1 R2 by R1 plus R2. That is quicker, just nothing important here. Next, equivalent resistor is less than the least involved. For example, if you have got, let's say, multiple resistors here, 1 ohm, 100 ohm, okay, 1000 ohm, then the equivalent resistance comes out to be less than the least one involved. So the equivalent resistance will be even less than 1 ohm. Next point, if you have got two resistors R1 and R2 in parallel and a current I tries to enter into circuit, the current divides into two parts. The current flowing through R1 is I into R2 by R1 plus R2 and the current flowing through R2 is I into R1 by R1 plus R2. Okay. Next, a simple question. If a wire of resistance R is cut into n equal part and these parts are connected in parallel, what will be the equivalent resistance? Now you must be thinking he has got no space to write where he will solve. The question does not require you to raise pen. If you have a wire of resistance R, you cut it into n equal part, what will be the resistance of one part? So if the whole wire has got resistance R, you cut it into n equal part, one part will have resistance R by n. When you place n such resistances in parallel, what will be the equivalent resistance? The equivalent resistance will be 1 upon R by n plus 1 upon R by n plus 1 upon R by n. How many times? N times. So you will say 1 upon R equivalent comes out to be n upon R by n. So that comes out to be n square upon R. So R equivalent is nothing but R by n square. Okay. One point which I missed out here. If you have got two identical resistance R in parallel, their equivalent is R by 2. If you have got three identical resistance R in parallel, their equivalent is R by 3. If you have got 4, R by 4. If you have got 5, R by 5. If you have got n identical resistors, each of resistance R in parallel, then the equivalent resistance is R by n. Okay, some problems for practice first. Here you can see we have got three resistance of 2 ohm, 3 ohm and 6 ohm in parallel connected to an ideal cell of 30 volt. The cell does not have any internal resistance. They might ask, what is the current in the circuit? So very simple, combine the three resistors, you will get that each resistance, okay, you can write 1 upon R equivalent equals to 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 6. Take the common denominator as 6. So here you get 3 plus 2 plus 1, that becomes 6 by 6. So R equivalent is 1. Since R equivalent is 1, current is 30. But what if they ask you what is the current in each individual arm? How to find? See beta, for things connected in parallel to an ideal source, the question is always cakewalk. Visualize that this 2, 3, 6 as well as battery all are connected in parallel. This means that the potential drop between this across this 2, across this 3, across this 6 and across the battery has to be same. The potential drop across this battery is 30. So the potential drop across each individual here also has to be 30. If this is a resistance of 2 ohm and potential drop across it is 30, so the current flowing has to be 30 by 2, that is 15. If this is resistance of 3 ohm and potential drop across it is 30, so the current has to be 30 by 3. Potential drop upon resistor, that will be 10. If this is resistance of 6 ohm and potential drop across it is also 30, then the current has to be 30 by 6, that will be 5. Now you can see the overall current going in 3 branches is 15, 10, 5. So their sum comes out to be 30 and that is the current input. So for resistors connected with ideal source, the question is very easy. Always solve it this way. Now here, next question. If rather same resistor 236, 236, same battery 30, 30, but this time one more resistance is there. This resistance is the internal resistance of cell. Now how will you find the current? To find current this time, combine them. When I combined them last time, I got R equivalent equals to 1. So this time also the combination of these three will give you 1. The combination of these three gives you 1. So you can revisualize the circuit as 30, 1 and 2. So now current this time in circuit has to be 30 divided by 3, that is 10 ampere. Now somebody might be thinking this time, if they ask what is the current in each individual branch, how to find, how to divide this 10 ampere of current in each individual branch. Dekh beta, this 2, 3, 6 and this battery and resistor combination are in parallel. So the potential drop across 2 ohm has to be same as 3 ohm, has to be same as 6 ohm, has to be same as battery. First of all, tell me this battery is getting charged or discharged? This battery is getting discharged. In the last video, we have learned that whenever a battery gets charged, the potential drop across it is E plus IR. Whenever a battery gets discharged, the potential drop across it is E minus IR. Here, the potential drop across battery, since it is getting discharged, has to be E minus IR. So 30 minus 10 into 2. So that comes out to be 10. The potential drop across this battery is 10. So potential drop between these 2 points has to be 10. So potential drop between all these points has to be 10. So the current in this first one has to be 10 by 2, 5. Second one 10 by 3, 10 by 3. Third one 10 by 6, 10 by 6. And if you add them up, 5 plus 10 by 3 plus 10 by 6, you will again get 10 ampere. Next question. There are these 3 resistances. You need to find equivalent resistance. You might find this question very, very easy and you might already know the answer. But listen to the process carefully. Here we will learn a method called nodal analysis. Each point connected by a wire straight in the system are at same potential. So if this point is at potential A, all these points all these points will have same potential A. So this is A, this is A, this point is also A, this point is also A, this point is also A. All the points connected in a circuit by a resistance-less wire are at same potential. Similarly, this is B, this is B, this is B, this is B, this is B. All of them are connected straight by wire. Now, ask yourself, what do we need to find? We need to find the equivalent resistance between A and B. So this first resistor connected between A and B, R. The second resistor also connected between B and A, so that is as good as connected between A and B, R. This third resistor also connected between A and B. So you can see R parallel R parallel R. You have got 3 identical resistor R connected in parallel. So their equivalent resistance comes out to be simply R by 3. Now let's solve this question. This time we have got this circuit. Now how to find the equivalent resistance between A and B? So first of all, mark out point of same potential. A. All these have same potential. All these points which are directly connected by wire will have same potential B. So B. I don't know potential of these points. Let's call them C. So now I'm going to find equivalent resistance between A and B. Let's start marking resistors. This first resistor is connected between A and B. Join it between A and B. The second resistor is connected between A and C. I don't have C. Mark any random point C. So between A and C. This third resistor connected between B and C. This fourth resistor connected between B and C. C and B and C, one and the same thing. Okay. Now see, you can see here these two R and R are in parallel. So R parallel R gives you R by 2. R by 2, if you again draw this A, okay, again draw this A to C, one resistance R, between C and B, 2 resistors R are in parallel, that becomes R by 2, and one resistor directly between A and B, that is R. So here you get R plus R by 2, 3R by 2, parallel R. So 3R by 2, parallel R. So how to find it equivalent? So upper line is 3R by 2, lower line is R. So R equivalent of 2 lines having resistance R1 and R2 in parallel is R1 R2 by R1 plus R2. So you write 3R by 2 into R upon 3R by 2 plus R. So this becomes 3R square by 2 upon 5R by 2, that you can solve further. Before we do more questions on combination of resistor, let's understand Wheatstone bridge. So what is the Wheatstone bridge? Let's say it's a 4 terminal circuit. Let's say there are 4 terminals A, B, C, D, and there are 5 resistors connected R1, R2, R3, R4, R5. And in this line of R5 we also have a galvanometer. Let's say the battery connected between A and B has EMF E and an internal resistance which is usually denoted by small r. So now here, this particular Wheatstone bridge is said to be a balanced Wheatstone bridge when no current flows through R5. If no current flows through R5, no current flows through the galvanometer, and if no current flows through the galvanometer, you don't find any deflection in galvanometer. So in balanced Wheatstone bridge, no current flows through galvanometer or R5. This happens when the potential of C becomes equals to potential of D. So what is the condition for a galvanometer to be Wheatstone bridge to be balanced? The condition for a Wheatstone bridge to be balanced is that R1 by R4 should be equal to R2 by R3. R1 by R4 should be equal to R2 by R3. This also tells us that R1 R3 should be equal to R2 R4. So when R1 into R3 becomes equals to R2 into R4, in such a condition, potential of C becomes equals to potential of D and no current flows through R5. So the galvanometer needle do not deflect at all. Now, 2 important properties that we should know first. If rather than placing battery between A and B, I place the battery between C and D, and rather than placing galvanometer between C and D, I place the galvanometer between A and B. Even then, a balanced Wheatstone bridge remains balanced. So if you change terminals of battery and terminals of galvanometer, the balanced Wheatstone bridge still remains balanced. In year 2019, in the Odisha paper, a question came on this very concept. Okay. Next thing that you should know, I call it personally extended Wheatstone bridge. If you have a big circuit in which R1 by R2 equals to R3 by R4 equals to R5 by R6, in such a condition, no current flows through R7 and R8. Since no current flows through R7 and R8, you can forget them. So now to find equivalent resistance between the terminal, you can take R1, R3, R5 in series, R2, R4, R6 in series, and then find their parallel combination. So few more example. If you have got five resistors connected like this, R, what is the equivalent resistance between A and B? So this is nothing but another way to draw Wheatstone bridge. If you look at this point, let's call this point C and this point D. In your imagination, move the D up and C down. Move the D up and C down. Then you can see this resistor is connected between AD, this resistor connected between AC, this resistor connected between CD, this resistor connected between DB, and this resistor connected between CB. So it is nothing a Wheatstone bridge. So in this circuit, no current will flow through the resistor connected between C and D. So the resistance of upper line will be 2R, lower line will be 2R, and 2R parallel to R, the equivalent resistance in this case comes out to be R. This is another example. There is a triangular frame with 3 resistors RRR, and from centroid 3 more resistances are joined RRR. So question is, what is the equivalent resistance between 2 and 3? So now here also, first of all, forget this guy. Now you can see this part is nothing but a Wheatstone bridge. If you can't see it, move the 4 down. Then you will see the perfect Wheatstone bridge shape. So this means that the upper part whole is a Wheatstone bridge. Since it's a Wheatstone bridge, no current flows through this particular resistance. Since no current flows through this particular resistance, now you have got 3 lines in parallel, 2R, 2R, R. 2R, 2R in parallel becomes R, and their combination R in parallel with this R becomes R by 2. So the R equivalent comes out to be R by 2. There is a fun fact about this. This is a special case. In this case, if you think of 4 terminal 1, 2, 3, 4, between any 2 terminal, the resistance comes out to be R by 2. So if they ask resistance between 2 and 4, if they draw 2 wires from here, then also R equivalent comes out to be R by 2. Let's practice one more one more example on extended Wheatstone bridge. So there are resistance 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. What is the equivalent resistance? So now here 1 by 2, 1 by 2, 1 by 2. So no current flows through these two, 3 ohm. So now the net resistance of upper line is 3 ohm. The net resistance of lower line is 6 ohm. So the equivalent resistance is 3 into 6 upon 3 plus 6, that is 18 by 9, that is 2 ohm. So let's solve two questions to find the R equivalent using symmetry. First case this. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 resistors. We need to find the equivalent resistance between A and B. Now see, once the current comes here, it has got three pathways: the central, the upper line and the lower line. Because of symmetry, above and below the line AB, we know that whatever current goes in the upper line, the same current will go in lower line. Notice that I can't say with % guarantee that the same current will go in central line. Though after solving, we will find that since no current flows through these two guys, here it is 2R, here it is 2R, here it is 2R, so same current must go through all three. That we will find later, but right now, I can't say that the current going in this middle line has to be same as upper and below. Why? This line goes further, divides into 2, this line goes further, divides into 2, but this line spreads into 3. So this is not the same line as the upper line and lower line. So since I can say that in these two lines, current has to be same, the potential difference across these two resistors has to be same. Initial potential of this point is same, potential difference here is same as potential difference here. This means that these 2 points will be at same potential, the uppermost and lowermost point. Since they have the same potential, I can denote them as same point, let's say C and C. Now, I know potential of all point A, C, B, C. What I don't know potential of all points is here, so let's call it D. Now, I will start to redraw the circuit between A and B. The first resistor connected between A and C, I don't have C, draw C somewhere. The second resistor connected between A and C. The third resistor connected between A and D, I don't have D, draw a D here. This one connected between D and B. This one connected between C and B. This one connected between D and C. This one connected between D and C. And one is left, this one connected between C and B. So now here, you can see it, this RR becomes R by 2, this RR becomes R by 2, this RR becomes R by 2, this is R, this is R. So I overall get R by 2, R by 2, R, R, R by 2. So this is again a balanced Wheatstone bridge. R by 2 into R equals to R by 2 into R. So I can remove this R by 2. The resistance of this upper line becomes R. The resistance of lower line becomes 2R. So equivalent resistance becomes R into 2R upon 3R. That comes out to be, kids, 2R by 3. Let's do one more question using this symmetry. Now see, again here we can see the circuit is symmetrical about line AB. So we can identify which points will be at same potential. From symmetry, current comes out, splits out. So I know that this point and this point will be at same potential. Let's call it C and C. Similarly, this point and this point will also be at same potential, D and D. Similarly, this point and this point will also be at same potential. No, not at all. Why? Current enters from here, it splits and then it's me. Beta, if the current goes forward, as the current goes forward, the potential of the right hand side should be lower. So you can't say that these 2 points are at same potential, not at all. So what to do? Take them as 2 different points. Let's say E and F. Now what I am going to say, rather than redrawing it step by step, taking all points, we can do one more thing. We can think that these 2 points are C. Think that rather than redrawing it again, since these 2 points represents the same potential, I have joined them. Okay, so D to C once, D to C second one. Okay, D to C one this one and D to C another. So this is called folding the circuit. So what I am going to use in this one is that I am going to fold the circuit. So when I fold it, I join C to C and D to D. So the new circuit will look like something. This is A, this is some point E. Between A and E, there is only one. After folding, it doesn't get double, but between E and D, you will get a double. So R, these two gets doubled, so you get R by 2. Okay, I should have started writing from here. Okay, kids. So this is A, this is E. Between A and V there is 1R. Between A and D there are 2. So draw these two in parallel, that becomes R by 2. Between D and C there are 2. So R parallel R becomes R by 2. Between A and C, R here, so that becomes R by 2. Between D and F, between D and F there are 2, R parallel R by 2. Between C and B there are 2, R. So between C and B there are 2, R parallel R, that becomes R by 2. Between F and B there is only one, that is R. So now you might not be able to see, but this is a balanced Wheatstone bridge. If you pull this D down, you get R by 2, 3R by 2, 3R by 2, R by 2. So no current flows through this R by 2. So between C and D, there is no current. So in the actual circuit, in this two line, no current flows. In the actual circuit, in these two lines, no current flows. So upper line resistance is R. You have removed this R. This lower line resistance is 3R by 2 plus 3R by 2. That is 3R. So the equivalent resistance is R into 3R by R plus 3R. So that comes out to be 3R by 4. Okay? So let's do one more example using the symmetry. So now let's say this is our circuit. Now current enters from A. Let's say in this lower line current goes I1, and in this upper line current goes I2. Because of symmetry, I can say if from here current enters I1 and here current enters I2, then from here current exit will be I2, here current exit will be I1. Okay. Now how to find the equivalent resistance between A and B? I say that from here current enters I1 and here current exit I1. If the current enters I1 and exits I1, it is as if there is no current exchange between this line and this lower line. So what we do is we rethink of the circuit R, and think this R and this R has got no current exchange with the lower line. So since there is no current exchange at lower line, we can break it. Once we break it, this circuit becomes easy to solve. These are 2R in series, so that becomes 2R. 2R parallel R. 2R parallel R gives you 2R into R by 2R plus R, that becomes 2R by 3. 2R by 3 plus R plus R. So this upper line is now 2R by 3 plus R plus R. 2R by 3 plus R plus R. And the lower line is 2R. So this upper line becomes 2R plus 3R plus 3R, that is 8R by 3. And the lower line is 2R, you can find their equivalent. Alternate method to solve the same question. If here you have got multiple resistance R, think of this upper resistance not to be R, think of it to be 2 equal R by 2 and R by 2. Let's assume that current enters from A, gets split, divided, move towards B, and then meet at B. Now here, because this circuit is symmetric in left half and right half, now after splitting this, so till this point there should be half potential drop. If the overall potential drop in the line is V, then till this point there should be half potential drop, and till this point the potential drop should be V by 2. This means that all these points should be at same potential. Since the potential of these 2 points will be equal, I can join them. Once I join them, now my circuit looks like R by 2, R by 2, R. Now I can find these two in parallel, R by 2. I can find these two in parallel, R by 2, and then this is in series with this, this is in series with this. So I can combine both of them in parallel and find out the answer. The answer coming out in both cases is same. This is just another alternate method to get the answer. So now let's move on to power, Shakti. So power is defined as the rate of doing work, dW by dt. For electro part, we can write dW as dq into V, that is the infinitely small charge dq taken through a potential drop V. dq by dt can be written as I, so power can be written as IV. Power can be written as IV for all things, for resistor, for battery, for capacitor, everything. Power equals to IV. Now see, But for resistor, for Ohm's law, we know that V equals to IR. So in place of V, if I substitute IR, we can even write power as I square R. And if in place of I, we write V by R, then we can even write power as V square by R. So this works for everything, while these two things work only for resistor. So power equals to IV equals to I square R equals to V square by R. Now let's see one simple question, which one to use when. Let's say there are two resistors R1 and R2 in series and a current I flows through them. Since the two resistors are in series, the current flowing through them has to be same. Question is, if R1 is greater than R2, who dissipates more power? If resistor 1 is greater than resistor 2, which resistor will dissipate more power? So see, in series, the current flowing through both have to be same. So the resistor of greater magnitude will dissipate more power. So since R1 is greater than R2, in this case you can say that the power dissipated by 1 will be more than power dissipated by 2 when connected in series. Next example. Now you have got same resistors R1 and R2 but connected in parallel to a battery of potential V. If R1 is greater than R2, who dissipates out more power? Last time they were connected in series, so the current flowing through them was same. This time they are connected in parallel, so the potential drop across them is same. This time using V square by R, it's better to compare. Since the potential drop across both is same, so the one having higher resistance will dissipate less power. So since R1 is greater than R2, the one having higher resistance will dissipate less power. So the power dissipated by resistor 1 will be less than the power dissipated by resistor 2. Next example. Here they have shown us three resistors, 2 ohm, 3 ohm, 6 ohm, and there are 2 points A and B. If power dissipated by 6 ohm is 24 watt, what is VA minus VB? Now see kids, power dissipated by 6 ohm is 24 watt. Using power equals to I square R, you can find that the current flowing through this 6 ohm has to be 2 ampere. 24 by 6, 4 under root 2 ampere. So as the current in 6 ohm is 2 ampere, this means that the potential drop across it is 6 into 2, 12. This 6 and 3 are in parallel. So if the potential drop across 6 is 12, potential drop across 3 also have to be 12. If the potential drop across 3 ohm is 12, then the current flowing through 3 ohm has to be 12 by 3, that is 4 ampere. So the current through this 3 is 4 ampere, current through 6 is 2 ampere. So this means that the current coming in has to be 6 ampere. That's only. It will divide. Now see better. The potential drop from here till here is 6 into 2, 12, 3 into 4, 12. The potential drop across this 2 ohm will also be 12. This means that the potential drop from A to B has to be 12 plus 12. So the potential drop between A and B has to be 24. So now, rating of an electrical appliance. This tells us that when this particular appliance, it can be bulb, it can be refrigerator, it can be AC, fan, anything. If this particular appliance is connected across X volt, then it consumes Y watt. So when connected across X volt, it consumes Y watt. We know that power equals to V square by R. So if the rating is X volt Y watt, then the power is Y. When connected across potential drop X, so you can say Y equals to rated power equals to rated voltage whole square upon the resistance of appliance. Rearranging, you can say resistance of appliance equals to rated voltage whole square upon rated power. Somebody might ask, why is rated voltage so important? In our household, all the devices are connected in parallel and not in series. The supply line potential in India is fixed at 220 volt. In USA, United States of America, it is fixed at 110 volt. So all the devices are rated for a particular potential drop. So now here, first question, two bulbs are rated 220 volt 60 watt and 220 volt 120 watt. Which one has got higher resistance? You can see that the rated voltage of both is same. And we know that the resistance equals to rated voltage whole square upon rated power. So the one which will have higher rated power will have lesser resistance. The one which will have higher rated power will have lesser resistance. So we can say the resistance of 120 watt is less than the resistance of 60 watt. Next question. Two bulbs B1 and B2 are connected in parallel with a source. If the rating of B1 is 220 volt 60 watt and the rating of B2 is 220 volt 120 watt, which one glows brighter? So every time you get this type of question, I recommend you do not think of bulb as bulb. Think of bulb as two resistor. Now here you have got two resistors connected in parallel. Think and tell which one has got higher resistance. Since the rated power of second one is more, the resistance of second one will be less. So I can say that R2 is less than R1. They are connected in parallel, so they are connected across the same potential drop. So thinking using power equals to V square by R, the one which has got lower resistance will definitely dissipate out more power. So here the power dissipated by 2 is more than power dissipated by 1. Sir, I could have directly said it by looking at the rating of second bulb. The second bulb is rated at 120 watt, so it must dissipate more. Yes, you can say this given that they are connected in parallel. So for same voltage rating, the one which has got higher rated wattage, higher rated power consumption actually glows more when connected in parallel, because they are meant to be used in parallel. They are designed to be used in parallel, as in our household. But by mistake, let's say somebody connect them in series. The way they are not at all meant to be used. They are meant to be used in parallel, but some idiot applied them in series. So if this person applied these two bulbs in series, now they ask and connect it with a source, now which bulb glows brighter? So now here you can say, see the same data given, B1 is 220 volt 60 watt, B2 is 220 volt 120 watt. This means that the resistance of 2 is less than resistance of 1. They are not at all designed to be used in series, but somebody is using it, God knows why. So now here, when connected in series, same current will flow through both of them. So the one which has got more resistance will dissipate out more power, and the one which has got less resistance will dissipate out less power. Since the resistance of one is more, the 60 watt one resistance is more. That's why the power consumed by one will be more than the power consumed by 2. So now in this case, 60 watt bulb will glow brighter than 120 watt bulb when connected in series. I am again saying they are not at all designed to be used this way, but somebody is using them, which is wrong. In such a case for same rated voltage, when connected in series, the bulb of lower wattage actually glows the brightest. So let's learn maximum power transfer theorem. What is the meaning of theorem? Let's say you have a cell of EMF E and internal resistance R. What has to be the value of load resistance so that the power transferred to the load resistance is maximum? The power transferred to the load resistance will be maximum when the load resistance is equal to internal resistance. So the power transferred to this load resistance, the power dissipated by this load resistance will be maximum when the load resistance will be equal to internal resistance of the cell. Remember this. Okay. So now question is, determine the maximum power that can be transferred by a cell of EMF 6 volt and internal resistance 1 ohm to a load resistance. So now solution, the maximum power will be transferred by cell to the load resistance when the load resistance equals to internal resistance. So let's say here we have a cell of 6 volt having internal resistance 1 ohm. The power transferred to the load resistance will be maximum when the load resistance equals to internal. So load resistance should also be 1 ohm. When we place a resistance of 1 ohm, the current in the circuit will be 6 by 2, that is 3 ampere. The current through this 1 ohm resistance is 3 ampere. So the power dissipated by this resistance has to be I square R. So I square 3 square into 1. So the power dissipated has to be 9 watt. Okay. Next question. There is this circuit, there is a battery of 6 volt having internal resistance 1 ohm and the line contains two resistance, one of 2 ohm and one variable resistance R. Question is, find the value of R so that the power dissipated by R is maximum. Now here, if you think that R should be equal to 1, that will be wrong answer. So what to do? What is the trick? Move this 2 ohm first from here to here, then from here to here, and then treat it like internal resistance. So think of this circuit as a battery of 6 volt having internal resistance of 3 ohm, 2 plus 1, 3 ohm, and then connected to a variable load resistance R. Now they are asking what has to be the value of R so that the power dissipated by R will be maximum. So the solution is very easy. R should be equal to 3 ohm, not 1 ohm. Now let's talk about devices. First, we will talk about voltmeter, ammeter, then meter bridge, and then potentiometer, and then the chapter will be over. But first, voltmeter, ammeter. Now, ammeter and voltmeter both are made out of galvanometer. Galvanometers are device in which we get a deviation when some current flows through it. The deviation, the angle by which the needle rotates, is directly proportional to the current flowing through it. We make both ammeter as well as voltmeter from galvanometer. So, let us first talk about ammeter. Ammeter, as the name suggests, are devices which are used to measure current. They are connected in series. A good ammeter should have small resistance. The smaller the resistance, the better is your ammeter. For an ideal ammeter, the resistance should be 0. Now, let us talk about voltmeter. Voltmeters, as the name suggests, are used to measure potential difference between 2 points. They are connected in parallel. For good voltmeter, resistance should be high. The higher the resistance, the better is your voltmeter. For an ideal voltmeter, the resistance should be infinity, actually tending to infinity. Now, we will learn meter bridge. There are two terms here, meter and bridge. Why? That word meter comes because of the length of the wire used in the meter bridge is 1 meter. And the second term bridge comes because it is based on the concept of Wheatstone bridge. But sir, first of all, tell us what does meter bridge do? A meter bridge is used to compare the resistance of two resistances or to find an unknown resistance using a known resistance. Let's say we have got two resistances. How does it work? This is what the system looks like. There is a battery of EMF E. There are three thick plates, and between these thick plates there are two gaps formed, gap 1 and gap 2. In these two gaps we can place resistances. Let's say in the left side resistance placed is R1 and on the right hand side resistance placed is R2. Then we make this jockey move over the meter wire. At some point we will definitely get a point at which no current flows through the galvanometer. When no current flows through the galvanometer, this particular point is said to be null point. Let's say on this 1 meter wire, this null point is obtained at distance x from the left hand. If it is at distance of x from left hand, and since the whole length is 1 meter, the distance from right hand will be 1 minus x. Understand that this 1 is in meter, so here x must also be substituted in meter. If no current flows through this galvanometer, it means that these five act as the part of balanced Wheatstone bridge. Which 5? R1, R2, resistance of length x and resistance of length 1 minus x. These 5 form a balanced Wheatstone bridge. That's why no current flows through the galvanometer. Now, if you know R1, you can find out the value of R2. And if you don't know both R1 as well as R2, you can simply find out the ratio of their resistance using the meter bridge. So, using the equation of Wheatstone bridge, whenever a Wheatstone bridge is balanced and no current flows through the central line, then we can say resistance of this part upon resistance of this part equals to resistance of this part upon resistance of this part. So, R1 upon resistance of this wire. Now, let's say this wire has got resistivity rho and cross-sectional area A, So, the resistance of length x of wire will be rho x by A. So, R1 upon rho x by A equals to R2 upon rho into 1 minus x by A. Here you can cancel out rho by A. So, you get R1 by R2 equals to x upon 1 minus x. Very simple, easy device. Which points we should know about meter bridge? First, why are these parts thick? Beta, a thick rod has got more resistance or less resistance? Rho L by A. So, the thick part should have less resistance. So, these frames are kept thick so as to have negligible resistance. Otherwise, taking the resistance of this part, we have to consider R1 plus resistance of this much frame as well. Okay, we have neglected it because we have taken it thick. The more the cross sectional area, the lesser the resistance. So, negligible resistance. Second thing, the balance length do not depend upon resistivity and cross sectional area of wire. How do you know? Because beta, this term rho by A get cancelled. So, if you replace this wire with another wire of greater cross sectional area but keeping R1 and R2 same, you will get the same balance length. If you replace this wire with another wire of higher resistivity, still the balance length will remain the same. So the balance length do not depend upon resistivity and cross-sectional area of this meter wire used. Second, if R1 is increased, if you increase this resistance, the balance point, keeping R2 constant, if R1 is increased, the balance point will shift to left or right. Notice that this resistance by this resistance has to be equal to that by that. This ratio has to be constant. When you increase R1, the resistance of this much part should also increase, so that ratio remains constant. So when R1 increases, the balance point shift towards right. Remember that. If R2 increases, the balance point shift towards left. Okay. This is the second point. If R1 increases, the balance point shift to right. Now let's do a question. On interchanging the resistances, the balance length shift by 20 centimeter. Find the ratio of resistance larger to smaller. Find the ratio of resistance larger to smaller. So let's say when you interchange the two resistances, the balance length shift by 20 centimeter. So let's say this is your initial Wheatstone, meter bridge. Yeah, I called it Wheatstone because it's actually based on Wheatstone. Let's say your first balance length is X here. This is R1, this is R2. When you interchange R1 and R2, now your balance length will be X from the other side, right? Because you have kind of changed the frame. And they have said that this balance length has shifted by 20 centimeter. So if this is original balance length, this is the new balance length after changing R1, R2 at X from other side, and the shift between them is 20 centimeter. You can write X in centimeter plus 20 plus X equals to 100 centimeter, the whole length, 1 meter equals to 100 centimeter. So here kids you get X equals to 100 minus 20, 80 by 2, that is 40 centimeter. It means that when it was originally balanced, before interchanging, before shifting, the balance length were 40 centimeter and 60 centimeter. So you can write R1 by rho into 40 by A equals to R2 upon rho into 60 by A. Cancel out rho by A, rho by A. So you get R1 by R2 equals to 40 by 60, that is 2 by 3. They have asked is larger to smaller. Larger to smaller will be 3 by 2. So now the last heading, potentiometer. Potentiometer, I don't know why students are scared. It's a very, very simple device. It's a better device. We'll learn points later, but first let's see how the device works. So now there is this cell called the primary cell, let's say having some internal resistance R, and this is, let's say, connected to a wire. This wire itself is called potentiometer wire. Let's say this wire has a resistance R and a length L. First thing first, what will be the current in this circuit? So the current in this circuit has to be equal to the EMF of primary cell upon the resistance R plus R. Next question, what will be the potential drop across this potentiometer wire? We know that the current in the circuit is EMF of primary cell upon R plus R, and the resistance of potentiometer wire is denoted as capital R. So the potential drop across potentiometer wire will be nothing but the current in the circuit multiplied by its resistance. So EMF upon R plus R into resistance of potentiometer wire. Now here we define a quantity called potential drop per unit length, represented by symbol K. What is the meaning of potential drop per unit length? In the entire potentiometer wire, we have got this much of potential drop. So what will be the potential drop in the potentiometer wire per unit length? So potential drop in the potentiometer wire divided by length. That is the meaning of potential drop per unit length. So how are potentiometers used? Now, once we know what is the potential drop per unit length in this wire, this can be used to measure some external potential. How? Let's say we need to find the EMF of this cell. We join the cell at one end to the left hand side of frame. This is conducting frame, and then we connect a galvanometer, and then we move the jockey on the wire till the time we get a null point. What is the meaning of null point? When we say that we have reached a null point, no current flows through the galvanometer. Now let's say this null point is found at a length X. Okay. Now if no current flows through this galvanometer, the current through this cell also have to be 0. When a cell gets discharged, the potential drop across its terminal is E minus IR. When the cell gets charged, the potential drop across its terminal is E plus IR. Here no current flows through the cell. That's why the potential drop across its end has to be equal to its EMF. The potential drop between these 2 points has to be ES equals to EMF of this cell. This particular part of circuit is called secondary circuit, and this is called primary circuit. This is called secondary circuit. Okay. So now here potential drop from this point till this point has to be equal to EMF of secondary cell. What has to be the potential drop in a length x? That's why we have defined a quantity called potential drop per unit length. The potential drop per unit length is K. So what will be the potential drop in a length x? The potential drop in a length x will be Kx. So potential drop here has to be same as potential drop there. So ES has to be equal to Kx. This is how we use a potentiometer. Now one important point, this has been asked many a time in many different competitive examination. Listen to it. Why is potentiometer more accurate than voltmeter? Why is potentiometer more accurate than voltmeter? Whenever a voltmeter gives reading, it is based on galvanometer. It always draws some current from the circuit. But when potentiometer gives reading, it do not draw any current from secondary circuit. Hence readings are more accurate. Hence reading is more accurate. Okay. So remember this. This is asked many a time. Why is potentiometer a more accurate device than voltmeter? Because when a potentiometer gives reading, it do not draw any current from the circuit. Now we will learn different things that can be done using a potentiometer. So now let's look at usages of potentiometer. Potentiometer can be used for comparing two resistances or to find an unknown resistance if a known resistance is given. You will say, you said the same thing for meter bridge. Yes, a potentiometer can even do the work of a meter bridge. Now let's say we have got this potentiometer circuit which is called the primary circuit. Let's say the EMF of here is EP, internal resistance R, and a potentiometer wire. And let's say we have got two resistances R1 and R2 whose resistance we wish to compare, or we need to find, let's say, unknown resistance R2 if we have a known resistance R1. So what do we do? First, we connect these two resistance to a secondary battery, so as to make a secondary circuit. Okay. Then we take from this point B, attach a galvanometer and find out a balance length. Let's say in this case the balance length comes out to be x1. Now whenever we get balance length, it means that no current flows through the galvanometer. It means that potential difference between these 2 points A and B has to be same as potential difference here. Since no current flows through G, no current flows here as well. So only in the secondary circuit the current will be ES upon R1 plus R2 by R. So you can say that, let's say this current is I, the potential drop across R1 will be IR1, and this has to be equal to the potential drop in a length x1 of this potentiometer wire. Let's say for this particular potentiometer wire, the potential drop per unit length is K. So the potential drop in a length x1 will be Kx1. So you can write I into R1 equals to Kx1. This is your first equation. Once you have found x1, then you disconnect the galvanometer, connect it to point C, and then again find a new balance length. Now let's say this time the balance length comes out to be x2. Okay. When you get balance length, no current flows through the galvanometer. This means that between this secondary circuit and primary circuit there is no current exchange. So the current in the secondary circuit still be same, equals to ES by R1 plus R2 upon R. So the current will be same. Now the potential difference between A and C will be same as the potential difference along a length x2. So the second equation we can write I into R1 plus R2 equals to Kx2. Now dividing both the side, I get cancelled, K get cancelled. So you get R1 upon R1 plus R2 equals to x1 by x2. Cross multiplying, you will get R1 x2 equals to R1 x1 plus R2 x1. Bringing terms of R1 on one side and R2 on other side, you can find the ratio of R1 to R2. So what I am trying to tell here, a potentiometer can even do the job of meter bridge. Next thing, we can even use potentiometer for comparing the EMF of two cells. How? Let's say we have got this primary circuit and we have taken a wire in which we have connected the two cells whose EMF we wish to find. Let's say there are 3 points A, B, C. First, we connect the galvanometer to point B and move it on the potentiometer wire. Let's say I get a balance length x1. When I get the balance length x1, if the potential drop per unit length of potentiometer wire is k, here the potential drop will be kx1, and this kx1 balances out E1. So I can write E1 equals to kx1. Now, once I have calculated that x1, I remove the galvanometer and reconnect the galvanometer to this point C and the potentiometer wire. Now let's say this time the balance length comes out to be x2. So the potential drop between A and C will be E1 plus E2. So E1 plus E2 equals to kx2. That becomes my second equation. Now I will do the same thing as I did here. Divided both the sides. So k and k get cancelled. You get E1 plus E2 equals to x1 by x2. Then rearrange and solve, and you can find out the ratio of EMF. So now the last usage of potentiometer, which is the most important one, to find the internal resistance of a cell. How to find the internal resistance of a cell using a known resistance, let's say capital R. First, we take the cell, do not use the known resistance, and then we balance the cell across the potentiometer wire. We take the cell, connect it with a galvanometer, move the jockey, and let's say the balance length comes out to be x1. When we get the balance length x1, it means that no current flows through the galvanometer. So the potential drop across this cell has to be equal to its EMF. Let's call it E dash. So the potential drop here equals to potential drop in a length x1. So E dash equals to k x1. Okay. Now, then we connect the known resistance R to this cell whose internal resistance has to be found, let's say small r. Once we connect it, the current start to circulate in this secondary circuit as well. How much current will flow in this secondary circuit? E dash upon R plus R. Now we take a galvanometer and move the jockey unless we find a new balance length, let's say x2. When we have found balance length, no current flows through galvanometer. So, since no current flows through galvanometer, there is no interaction between the primary circuit and the secondary circuit. Second thing, now you have connected galvanometer here. The potential drop across this R will be same as the potential drop across battery, will be same across an x2 length of potentiometer wire. The potential drop this resistance equals to potential drop across the length x2. Potential drop across this resistance has to be current in the secondary circuit into R. Current in the secondary circuit is E dash upon R plus R. Substitute it here. So you get E dash upon R plus R, current in secondary circuit into resistance, potential drop here equals to potential drop in the potentiometer wire kx2. If I divide it now both the side, this term E dash will get cancelled. So you will get R upon capital R plus small r equals to x2 by x1. On solving, you can find out the internal resistance to be x1 minus x2 into the known resistance used upon the final balance length x2.